everybody, thank you for joining me. I hope you've had a good day and you're ready to learn something new. So today we're going to be making a Thai green curry. I'm going to be showing you how to do a vegan option and also a non-vegan option. I'm going to use chicken, and really the idea behind that is showing you how you can make a vegan flexible meal. Because we're eating together as a family. You may have some members of the family who are opting for a plant-based or would like to go vegan, whereas others are saying, nope, where's my meat? I need meat. And it's very easy to make sure that you please everybody. So I hope that if I can show you the base of this, then you can adapt it to suit your dietary preferences and of course your family's dietary preferences. Now, the first thing we're going to do is make the paste. It's very easy to make the paste. So some of you may already be using a paste, a ready-made one in a jar, which is absolutely fine, but I do really feel that if you can make your own, the flavors are incredible and it is very easy. It's simply a question of adding the right things and making sure that you've got everything. So the first thing we'll do is make that paste. So you need a powerful blender. So I'm using this machine here. Is called a Thermomix machine. It's a very powerful kitchen processor. It actually does a lot more than that. It cooks, it chops, it blends, it does everything. But right now we're going to be using it for its blending ability. But if you've got anything else, even a NutriBullet will also allow you to blend the ginger and the garlic and the herbs as we are going to be using. So one of the key things is herbs. Now you'll see here I've actually got quite a lot of herbs. It might look like a lot, and it is. So if you're buying it in the supermarkets, it's actually one of those big bags. So if you're buying small bags, I would definitely use 2 bags. So it looks like a lot, but this is where a lot of the flavor comes from. But also from a nutritional perspective, if you look at this and you see that it's a dark green leaf, you know that it's going to be packed with nutrients. You've got great vitamins and minerals. You've got iron, magnesium, B vitamins, plus all sorts. So it really is nutritionally powerful as well as really adding in the flavor. So we've got the coriander. This is coriander, by the way. Then ginger is the next thing to use. Now fresh ginger, you cannot beat those flavors. Again, I'm going to be quite generous with it. So if you're going to make a homemade paste, be generous with the ingredients because you will get a fully flavored sauce. You can always water it down or thin it down or not use as much and keep the rest in the fridge if you find it too strong. But I would definitely advise you to be generous with that. So I would say around 2 inches is a usual portion. I'm going to add about that much, which is probably maybe around 3. So let's try that. I'm not going to peel it. I think once you've blended it in any blender, then there is absolutely no need to peel it. It's just a little bit of extra fiber and it's one stage that you don't need to worry about. So just chop that into small pieces because it's going to be blended. If you're using a NutriBullet, I would possibly cut it into smaller pieces, but this blender can certainly cope with that. Now, garlic. I like to pre-peel garlic and keep it in a jar in the fridge so it's ready to use. I mean, imagine if you've got that ready and waiting, you are much more likely to use it. So it's a lot easier. Once you've got your hands dirty, you've got the chopping board out, you've got the knife there, just peel the whole bulb and put it into a jar and then you've got it there to use. So I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Possibly 1 too many, but not that much more. So, so you can see there, I'm really not skimping on adding the garlic as well. So one thing I'm going to do is not put it all into the bowl. I'm actually going to drop them all onto a running blade. Now you can't do that with a NutriBullet, but you can do it with a lot of other kitchen blenders. The reason for that is I want it to drop onto the blade, chop very finely and then disperse to the side because I literally want it chopped rather than mashed up in is a slight difference. And I think if I do it by hand, I'm not going to get it as fine. So I think this is one of the things that you probably do need a kitchen machine. But you know what? If you don't have one, you're just going to have to chop it by hand and it will be a little bit less coarse. But that's all. So it's more a texture once you're eating it. So this, if I just show you this, the blade is down there, and it's how quickly the blade goes down will depend on how finely that will be chopped. So I'm actually going to put it all the way to speed 10, which means that it will chop very finely. So I'm going to pop that all the way. So it'll make a little bit of a noise. So the first thing I'm going to do is drop the ginger. So I literally just drop that onto the running blade. The smell is incredible. And now the garlic. And finally, the herbs. And this is where it makes a difference, dropping it onto the running blade. Okay, so it's a lot quieter now. Thank you for bearing with me on that one. So, can you see how that has now just gone all the way to the sides, and we've actually got chopped paste. Okay. And the flavours are going to be sensational. It really smells very, very pungent. You've got that ginger, garlic and coriander into this fabulous, and again, bright green paste, because visually we want that to look great as well. So I'm going to pop that on. I'm going to be using coconut oil because this oil is very easy to use with Asian flavours. It lends itself perfectly. It's also a great oil to use at high temperatures, so it's a stable, it means that it's not going to change its makeup when it's heated. That's very important to know with any oil or fat that you use. So butter is also a very stable fat, so is rapeseed oil, whereas olive oil isn't. So when you're making an Asian flavoured dish, this lends itself perfectly. So I'm going to be using coconut oil. Put a good tablespoon there. Stray bit there. Allow that to warm, and then we're going to add in the herb mixture paste. So I'm just going to grab an onion. Now, these gigantic onions, some of you may have seen it on my Instagram recently this week, arrived in a vegetable box, which is fantastic. So talk about efficiency. I reckon I don't need all of that, so I think this one is going to be the equivalent of around 2 onions. But it does mean that I don't need as many. So if it's not, it would just be 2 onions. I want them sliced because I actually want to see the onions, so I don't want them to disintegrate if I was doing chopped. So I'm just going to do them thinly sliced. If you are using just a normal size onion, you don't need to cut it into the middle. I think it'll be a great size slice as it is. Okay, right. So we'll just make sure that that oil has heated. So coconut oil just melts into an oil. So at room temperature, it is solid, and then when you warm it, it's a liquid. So you can hear that sizzling. So I'm just going to give that a couple of minutes to start cooking, but I don't want it to brown. I really want the flavours to stay without any burnt flavour. So we're creating the sauce that has got all the flavours, and then it's a question of what we add to it. So the sauce is essentially the onions and this fabulous paste that you've made. Okay. So it's just starting to change a little bit. It's going a little bit translucent. So that's when you know that it's softening, and you can now, it's going to start actually cooking. So what we want to do now is add the paste to the onions. Now you can imagine how this is where a lot of the flavour is going to come from. So we want to really cook that through. And the smells will come through as you heat it, and all those flavours get released. I'll show you in a second. So, that's what it looks like, which is a fantastic green colour. I'm going to add some salt because I want to release a little bit of moisture from the onions to allow that to cook, but not too much. Now, when you buy a ready-made paste, there's a lot of salt in that. So you don't have control over the amount of salt that you're eating, but when you're cooking from scratch and you're adding that salt, you can control how much salt you use. So don't be worried about using salt. Salt will bring out the flavour in your food, so it makes a difference to the ultimate meal. So don't be worried about that. And also think about adding it during the cooking process, because if you do that, the flavours will develop and it will be a lot less subtle, a lot more subtle. So it will really just be flavoursome, but not necessarily due to the saltiness, although the saltiness will be having a big impact on that. Now, again, I just want to cook that for a little bit longer. So I'm going to cover that, just turn it down a little bit, but not too much, because I still want it over a reasonable heat so that it can release the flavours. So then what I'm going to do is prepare the vegetables. Now, this is a green curry, so I'm actually going to stick with some green vegetables. I'm a little bit limited at the moment with what vegetables I could get. I would have liked to have used some mushrooms as well, because if you're opting for a vegan curry, mushrooms are an excellent source of protein, and it's almost a little bit meaty. It's solid, it's got a lovely texture to it, and I think it also adds a lot of flavour, but it really doesn't matter. And the great thing about a meal like this is you can just have a look in the fridge and see exactly what you've got, and anything goes, so it doesn't really matter. But right now I've got some some sugar snaps. They're a little bit thicker than the mange tout. And I've also got some broccoli. Now, what I wanted to show you here is that the broccoli I'm using has definitely seen its better days. It's not, it's certainly not, sort of going off or anything like that, but it's the colour of it. It's starting to brown a little bit. Now, the reason I've kept it is I want to show you that actually it's perfectly fine to use. So what I don't want you to be doing, it's certainly not now when it's not so easy to get out shopping, but really any time, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be wasting food at any point. We literally are just going to take away the bits that we're not so keen on. And can you see underneath it all? It's absolutely fine. It's still very solid and it's a good texture. So, and there's nothing that's gone off about it. It's just not terribly appealing. But once it's cooked, it's not going to make a difference at all. So that was just one particularly bad section. So I literally have kept that to show you, whereas the rest of it I've already cut. So we're cutting it into small, sort of fork-sized pieces, because at the end of the day, you're just going to eat this as a curry, perhaps with a fork, and so you don't want them too big. The other thing that I have kept are the stalks, the broccoli stalks. I do not want you to throw the stalks away as well. This is where all the flavour is. This is where all the fibre is. And therefore, why would you throw it away? Because that is almost a portion. So not only are you not wasting food, but your whole meal will go a lot further. So if you're trying to feed more people, keeping the stalks would be so beneficial. From a health perspective, but also from a practical perspective. Now the stalks are going to take a little bit longer to cook. So I pulled these together because I think they'll take about the same amount of time. You want them cooked, but you still want them to be a little bit crispy. So a little bit longer, but I've kept these separate because I think they need to go in just a touch earlier because they are more fibrous, they are harder, and they will take a little bit longer to cook. So I'm just going to check this paste. Okay, so we've given it a little bit longer to cook, so I can see that it's starting to release some moisture. So what I'm going to do now is add the coconut milk, okay? So the coconut milk is in a tin. So you can use any one you like. I am not so keen on the light version. I think if you're going to use a coconut milk, do use the full fat version. It's more satiating, it's more flavoursome, more creamy. You don't need to use as much. So you can be a little bit more controlled over how much you want to use. Now I'm going to use it all. There's always the cream at the top and the water at the bottom where it has separated. So we're going to use the whole lot, and this would be for a family, you know, sort of certainly 4 or 6 for smaller portions, so it's not a huge amount. Okay, so, and it's really starting to look like a lovely creamy sauce. So I'll just stir that in, and can see that sauce is really starting to look like a traditional Thai curry of sorts. So now I'm going to let that cook and simmer for a little bit longer, and I'm going to chop the stalks. What I tend to do, this one particularly isn't that thick. This one is a little bit thicker. So what I tend to do is chop it in half and then chop it at an angle. Because again, what you don't want when you're eating it is a big chunk of this stalk. So chop it at an angle so it's smaller and also not too thick. And that way, no one will even notice, and they will certainly not notice that they're getting the nutritional benefits of the fibre and the flavour benefits as well. Okay, so I'm going to keep these separate and we'll add those in a moment. In the meantime, because we're going to make this as a vegan Thai curry, we want to think about where our protein is going to come from, and you have options. So if you're a fan of tofu, this would be a great one to add chunks of tofu in. So I would recommend that you buy the extra firm. If you've used tofu before, you'll know that you need to perhaps put it through, put some books over a plate so that it allows the water just to drain out of it. If you're buying an extra firm one, you may not need to do that so much, but if not, then that's what you do, because otherwise it will disintegrate when it goes into the sauce. But there's no need to cook it beforehand. You just cut it into cubes, and then we can pop that into the sauce once it's ready. But in either case, I think adding some cashews also adds protein and adds fibre. So you know that you're getting extra protein, which as a vegan is very important. So what we're going to do now is toast these. I'm going to put this onto a lower heat, just allowing this sauce to simmer and to cook through and for the flavours to develop. Now, when you're doing nuts, what you need to do is make sure you're continually tossing them, because if you don't, they're going to burn on one side. So it's a bit of a labour of love, but I I think it's really worth it. So it will just add that texture, add that crunch, and of course add the protein and the fibre that we're looking for to make the whole meal much more nutritionally balanced. Now, if you are thinking about a vegan or plant-based diet, I have written a course that you may be interested in. It's called Accidentally Vegan. And it's called Accidentally Vegan because that's pretty much the way I eat. So I do eat meat. I do eat everything, actually. So there is no food group that I eliminate. But if I look at actually what I eat most of all, it is plant-based foods. And if you're following me on Instagram, you'll see that many of my meals are plant-based. But I don't call myself a vegan. So, and I've realized that I'm probably what I now call myself accidentally vegan. So I have written an online course where it's webinars and videos where I'm explaining all the nutritional implications of how to aim for a vegan diet or a more plant-based. And it's essentially how to eat more plants and less meat. So you don't have to be proper vegan. You can just simply be aiming to eat more plants. And frankly, if you're eating more plants, that's a healthier way of eating. We need to increase our fibre. We need plants where the majority of our vitamins and minerals are coming from. And if you are good minerals, your immune system is certainly going to have a boost, but also your whole body is going to have a great boost, and it's going to have everything it needs to work efficiently. So increasing your fruits and vegetables is really an ideal way of eating anyway. So if you're struggling and you don't know how to do that, as well as making sure that you get all the nutrition you need, you may be interested in my Accidentally Vegan online course. If you head to my website, it's there. It's called A Game Changer, and I'm offering right now, because I really to encourage people to opt for more plant-based way of eating, I'm offering a discount of £30. The course is £97, so there is £30 discount with the code SARS. Whenever you like, you can come back, refer to them. It's an online course and it's in modules, so you just watch one module and then the next and then the next when you're ready. But the great thing about the course is that there is an ebook with over 45 recipes and suggestions. So even, as I say, if you don't want to be vegan, I think the recipe book is really worth it. But there's lots of cheat sheets and videos with me explaining everything you need to know. So there's meal planning, shopping as a vegan, how to actually cook as a vegan, and how to incorporate this into your day-to-day life. So I'm still working with these now. They are starting to turn, so this is where I don't want to be neglecting it, because this is where they're going to burn. And these are really lovely when they're toasted. Now, you'll see I haven't had a need to add any oil to this, so I am what I call dry toasting, because I don't think you need to add any oil. We just simply want to turn them a slight golden colour, because then you've got a slight more nuttiness. I know they're obviously nuts, but just a slightly more nutty flavour, and also a little bit more crunch, which I think is quite fun when you're eating a meal like this. Okay, so can you see how there is a slight change in colour? I'm going to do it just for a tiny bit longer, but not much longer. So a non-stick pan, I would suggest, would be the best thing to use. But, you know, as long as you keep moving it, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there, because if I don't, it could easily go the other way and I could burn them. So I'm not going to. Remember that the pan stays hot for a little bit longer, so it will continue to toast. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to keep those, because I'm going to use those when I come to serve it, rather than putting them in, because I want them to retain their crunch. So let's bring this back now. And we'll see how this is getting on. Okay, it's starting to thicken, and the flavours are amazing. Okay, so you can have a look there. So what we'll do, now that that's had a chance to cook and the flavours can infuse, this is where we're going to now add in either the tofu or the chicken. I'm going to be using chicken today because I want to show you when to add the chicken. Chicken takes a little bit longer time to cook than the tofu, so you would just simply allow for that. So if you're using tofu, I would actually add the tofu and the vegetables at the same time. But because I'm using chicken, I want to give that a chance to cook a little bit. Now, I've cut them into very, very thin strips. So I'm making a Thai chicken curry, green curry, Thai green curry. And I'm making a chicken version, but I'm also discussing how to make a vegan version. With the chicken version, I've cut them into very thin strips. The advantage of cutting it into thin strips is that it will cook quicker. It also makes it more easy to eat because they're just little bite-sized pieces. But the key thing is it cooks quicker. And when we're in a hurry and we want things to be cooked quickly, I think that's a great advantage. So I'm just going to be popping that in. And I don't see a need to fry these off beforehand. That's a stage that I don't think makes a difference. What I prefer is to put them in here, stir them so they don't stick, and then as it cooks and releases the flavours, that all goes into the sauce. So the sauce just becomes more flavoursome. I think if you're pan frying to start with, it's just another stage that can get a bit messy and the kitchen can get a bit smoky. And I don't think it actually adds that much. I think you get lovely, soft, tender pieces of chicken breast, which can have a tendency to dry out and be a little bit harder if you just add them straight into the sauce. Now you'll see that the chicken, once it's cooked, starts to change colour and it's more white, and there are some slightly pink pieces there that haven't started to cook. So you just stir it for a little bit longer, and then I think once all of them have turned white, you don't need to keep stirring, because the reason I'm stirring is I don't want them to clump together. I want them to come apart, and then we've got lovely individual pieces when we're eating it. Okay, so I think that's about right now. Let that now cook. So I'm just going to give that 5 minutes or so to cook before adding in the vegetables. And then once the vegetables are added in, really only takes another sort of 5 minutes maximum for the vegetables to cook and for everything to be ready. This is the type of meal that you can easily prepare the day before, frankly, the week before. The longer you have for it to infuse in the fridge, the tastier the curry will be. So I think it's one of those things that once you've got your cooking facilities out, you've got your blender, you've got the chopping board out, you're peeling garlic, chopping ginger, I would just make a bigger amount and then either keep it in the fridge for the whole family or eat one portion, and then this freezes absolutely beautifully. What you can do is freeze it at this stage. So if you're using tofu, I would add the tofu in fresh when you're eating it. But certainly if you're eating chicken, I would cook it to this stage, cook the chicken, and then freeze this. When you come to eat it, that's when you add in the fresh vegetables, because then it retains the crunch and the vibrancy of the vegetables. So it's entirely up to you. It will freeze just as well with the vegetables as well. So if you've got leftovers, absolutely perfect to freeze. So do not throw it away and do not waste it. Okay, let that cook. And then we'll add the stalks in, because remember that these take a little bit longer to cook. And I think you'll be so surprised how much more of a portion you will make by keeping those stalks. So do not throw them away. There is so much you can do with these. And this is just one of the things that I use the broccoli stalks for. I also include them in stir fries. So, I would just maybe chop them up a little bit thinner into slivers for a stir fry. And again, it's going to bulk stir fry up just that little bit more. So it will go further. You don't have to cook as much and the meal will go a lot further. And obviously it's much more cost effective as well. So we're almost there, because what I will do is I will serve this and show you the result, and then I will post this video so that you can watch it again. Perhaps if you're watching live, that's great, but if you're not, you can watch it again and you've got the finished meal already. I would serve this with some brown rice, but basmati rice is also great, and also noodles. So it's entirely up to you how you want to eat it. You've got jasmine rice as well. So, you know, any rice, white rice or a white looking rice, so, you know, a brown rice or basmati or a jasmine rice, and it will be absolutely delicious. So last stage is adding in the rest of the vegetables. And these really go in towards the end because we want to retain the vibrancy of the vegetables. It looks like it's a lot at the moment. The vegetables will release water. The sauce won't be as thick, but that's why I've kept it a little bit thicker at the moment. And then I'll show you. So if I just show you there. So it's just, you can see that the vegetables are going to start releasing the water and we will have a much more sauce. I'll also check the seasoning. And no, I think that needs a little bit more salt. Doesn't need any other flavours. I don't like to use stock because I think if you start adding stock, whether it's a vegetable stock or a chicken stock, everything can taste like stock. So if you're using very flavoursome ingredients like the ginger, the garlic, the coriander, then we've got great vegetables in there, the salt is perfectly sufficient to bring out those flavours. And then you actually do taste those flavours rather than have them masked by the stock. So, and that is it. So what I'm now going to do is just allow that to cook slightly. So I would cook that for around 15 minutes and then turn it off and allow the flavours to infuse. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching. I will post the finished meal and I will also post this video. It'll be on my stories for the next 24 hours and then it will be on my feed as well. And if you're watching on Facebook, then it will also be on my Facebook feed, May Simpkin Nutrition. If you're following me, that's great. If you're not, I would love you to follow me. I will always be posting meals to inspire you. And also, don't forget the Accidentally Vegan online course, which could be a game changer while you've got a little bit more time to be watching videos. And don't forget to use the code STAYHEALTHY30 for a £30 discount. Any questions, anything that isn't clear, you can go. So you can direct message me or put a message or a comment under this video and I will be very, very happy to answer. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.